Morning, everyone. Lovely to see people joining. If you can pop into the chat for me where you are joining us from, and then we'll get started at 10:15 on the dot, hopefully, and aim to finish at 11 dead on. So great. Thank you so much to everyone for being here today. Just pop your information into the chat so that we can see where you're from. Maybe put a little bit of information about the school setting that you're in, if you're a specialist teacher, what it is exactly you do in your school. Newcastle, brilliant. Morning, Lynn, lovely to see you. Oh, Jane, lovely, freelance languages practitioner, fantastic, thank you. Oh, Sicily, lovely, and Switzerland, morning, fabulous. Oh, Cologne, fabulous. Hello, James. I was there the other week. It's a very beautiful city. Brighton, fantastic. Northern Ireland, morning, Jenny. A Canadian currently in Brazil, fabulous. Morning, Glenn. Kidderminster, lovely, not far from me. London, fabulous. Loughborough, not far from me as well. Bath, hello, Belinda. And Lola in London, fabulous. Right. We are at 15:15, so I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds and then we're going to get started with today's session, which I am doing on an iPad. So if my hand suddenly comes into the screen because I need to have a look at the chat or whatever, then please excuse me. So good morning, everybody. Those of us who are not yet here will join, I'm sure, as we go through. Just a quick reminder about a couple of things for the webinar. It's obviously being recorded, and I think you gave your permission for that when you came in. The chat is really just to be used for introductions, so we've had a little introduction in the chat just now, but you should notice on your screen that there is a little Q&A icon. As I'm going through and as I'm speaking, I'm sure that there will be questions that pop into your mind or things that you want to say at the end of the presentation. And there is going to be time for that at the end of the presentation. So if you do have a question, could you pop it into the Q&A section rather than into the chat? Because it may get lost with other things in there. So into the Q&A box for questions as we go through, and then I will answer as many of them as possible on the way through, at the end, that you put to me on the way through at the end of the presentation. So good morning, everyone. Let's get started. It's such a pleasure to be here with you this morning at the start of what is going to be an amazing weekend of sharing and discussion all about languages in its various different forms. And today I'm going to be talking to you about celebrating culture in the primary languages classroom. My name's Ellie. My details are at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, as you can see. I am a primary qualified teacher, but I'm currently working as a specialist French teacher and languages and international lead at Hazel Community Primary School, which is an inner city primary school, very multicultural, very multilingual, and I teach French to all of Key Stage 2 and some extracurricular Spanish as well. And I lead on languages, of course, but I also lead on the international dimension of our curriculum, which I'm going to be sharing a little bit about with you as we go through this presentation. Today, I'm going to really be talking to you about my journey as a teacher and my school's journey in general towards weaving language learning and culture together to what I hope is to create a really powerful language offer, which allows much deeper understanding of the many cultures of the Francophone world, not just of France. And of course, what I'm going to present to you today is nowhere near the finished article, because as teachers, we're always looking to improve and to change and to adapt according to the pupils that we're teaching. So what I'm sharing for you now is what we do currently. I'm going to share some of the plans that we have for the future and talk about some of the things that we do and the ways that we celebrate culture within our school, both within our French lessons and outside of our French lessons as well. So the aims of today's session really are to explore the specific dates and days that we might celebrate in school that many of you are already celebrating. And we're going to be considering how units of work can be adapted to I've put expose, hopefully not to expose children, to expose children to the culture of the target language country or countries, and to discuss opportunities for cross-curricular learning and signpost cultural resources as well as we go. So when I was about 6, just to give you a little bit of background, I was given an illustrated children's atlas, which was full of really amazing maps and colourful pictures and photographs of many, many different places around the world, many of them very far-flung. And I spent absolutely hours poring over these maps and looking at these pictures. And I think if I was ready to pinpoint it for myself, even though I don't suppose I sort of thought about it at the time, that was the moment that my eyes were really opened up to the vastness of the world outside of my own experience. This was a time pre-internet. We didn't have so much access to information about the outside world, if you like. And this atlas was the first of many other books over the years to become, for me, a passport to other landscapes and climates and languages and experiences. And it really filled me with this kind of longing to travel and to explore everything that the world had to offer. And I did eventually go off to university and studied for a degree in French and Hispanic studies, and lived in France and lived in Latin America, and got a chance to really see some of these places firsthand for myself. And it's this feeling of excitement about discovery of culture and discovery of other things and other places that has never really left me. So even now, 30 years later, I actually still have that atlas because it reminds me of that initial excitement of learning about the world. And it is very dog-eared now, actually, and it's very, very old. In fact, it's so old it has a map of Yugoslavia in it, but it's still something that reminds me of that excitement that I felt as a child. And it's this joy of discovering more about the world and its cultures that I really want to share with the children that I teach. I really want them to have that excitement about culture. I want them to have that excitement about language learning. I want them to have that excitement about exploring the world outside of their own experiences. And it's something that I hope that we do quite well at Hazel. And it's certainly something that the children really seem to enjoy. So I consider myself incredibly lucky to work in a really diverse and multilingual primary school, as I've already said to you. But we have lots and lots of children who've had very, very different experiences of the world. Some of them have been born and brought up in Leicester, where my school, Hazel Primary School, is located. And some of them have never really left, never really gone and done anything. Some of them have never got to the seaside, for example. But then we have other children who have these incredible life experiences, who come to us from other countries, who may have lived in several other countries before they arrive in the UK, and are bilingual, if not multilingual, when they first arrive with us. And that's something that as a school we really try to capitalize on, doing things like celebrating European Day of Languages, or Day of Languages as we call it in our school, to really celebrate the languages and cultures that the children bring to our school community, by inviting parents in to come and teach some words in their home languages, share stories, etc. And by having outside individuals come in as well, such as representatives from the Confucius Institute, who came to us this year to share some Mandarin or Chinese culture with fan dancing and calligraphy, etc. So we really do celebrate that side of our school culture, and that's something that we've been building over the years that I've been in charge of the international dimension. But when I first started teaching French, when I first became French lead at the school, we really weren't doing any foreign language teaching at all. So French was being taught in little pockets here and there, but really not particularly well. And there certainly wasn't anything like the sort of progression that we would want the children to have over time. And when I started teaching French, I was really keen and I was really clear that I wanted to start bringing in elements of culture into the French classroom to enthuse people about language learning, to give context to their language learning, and really bring that language learning to life for pupils. And it really started off by the celebration of key dates and important moments and events in the French and Francophone cultural calendar. So we did things like celebrating La Fête des Rois. So we celebrated Epiphany, and we still do that. And learned about the traditions of Le Poisson d'Avril, so April Fools. And we also, at the end of the year, began celebrating Le 14 Juillet, or Bastille Day, which is a really nice way to round off the school year. Here are some photos from this year's Bastille Day, and it's really taken on a life of its own since I began organising it 4 years ago. Obviously, it's been interrupted by COVID in various different ways, lockdowns, etc., remote learning. But what we have created is a day that's really exciting for children and for staff, where they get to explore some of the culture of France and the traditions around Le 14 Juillet. So they learn all about the history of the celebration, the importance of it within the French cultural calendar, and they do artwork and D&T work. Here they are constructing trying to construct the tallest Eiffel Tower, choosing appropriate materials to construct the tallest Eiffel Tower. And they do cheese tasting, and they play pétanque on the playground, which is the aerial shot that you can see of them all on the ground. And also, very, very importantly, they get to come to the French cafe. Every class rotates around the French cafe, and they come and use their French to order croissant, pain au chocolat, orange juice, etc. And we have year 6 waiters who come and take the orders and serve to the table, and the children use their pleases and their thank yous, etc. So this is how we really started off with kind of individual days. And just as a heads up for anybody who is organising or wants to organise something like this for their Bastille Day celebrations, you can approach the community champions at your local supermarket, or the supermarket local to your school, should I say, who can help you in terms of providing resources, so providing food, etc., free of charge. And often all they ask in return is for the children to write a thank you note that they can put up on their community board. So again, something really nice to do with the children that doesn't have to break the budget if you ask the right people. So that is something that we started off by doing, and that's how we started off our real bringing in culture into our language learning. But I was really aware that these dates and these key days and these individual isolated moments were really great. But if I wanted to start embedding an understanding of French culture within the school's languages curriculum, I really needed to find a more sustained and multi-layered approach to teaching culture. And the national curriculum really doesn't tell us very much about what we need to be teaching in terms of culture. Which is a bit of a missed opportunity, I think. But actually, it's very clear that children need to be making sustained and substantial progress in the skills of speaking, listening, reading, and writing in the target language across the 4 statutory years of study at Key Stage 2. But again, because we're primary teachers, primary practitioners, we know that time is really, really limited in the primary classroom. So I had to find a way in which to incorporate culture in a way that wasn't going to take away from what the children needed to be doing in terms of their language learning. And so that's when I began thinking about how I could adapt my long-term planning for Key Stage 2 to include as much culture as humanly possible. And that's when I had a look at my long-term plan, and I started either adapting units of work that I already had or adding in ones which weren't there before and which allowed me to marry together the skills that the children needed to be learning with the cultural element too. So on this long-term plan, we've got all the things that we would expect to see, or most of the things I suggest that we would expect to see in a primary classroom. We've got talking about our age, birthday, free time, the town. We've got some sort of cross-curricular links with science, for example, with Les Prédateurs in year 6. But here I've circled in blue the units of work which actually bring culture into the classroom. So every single year group has got at least one unit of work which brings culture as well as language into their French lessons. And this is just one example. This is year 3. This is a topic or unit of work based on this fantastic book that you see on the screen, which is called Vive l'heure du goûter, a lovely, colourful book, lots of fantastic pictures and brilliant text, nice simple text in there that's great to read aloud with year 3. And the whole unit is based around this concept of le goûter. So we talk about what is le goûter, and we talk about the fact that it's as famous and important and iconic in France as the afternoon tea, say, in the United Kingdom. And it's a really important after-school snack that all children in France, or most children in France, enjoy when they come back from school. And we talk about the reasons for this, because dinner might be later, the children need something to keep them going after school. And we talk about what do we eat after school, what time do we eat our dinner, etc. And we make those comparisons with France. And then we start talking about the vocabulary. So we bring in the vocabulary side of things. We bring in the fact, the words that the children are going to need. Obviously not all of the words from the books, but we bring in words like le pain au chocolat, la barquette, etc. And we use our phonics. We try to spot the graphemes that we've already learned. We use physical French phonics in our school. So we use our actions and our sounds to help us to spot particular graphemes within the words. And we use that to help us to pronounce those words really, really accurately. And then it's time to have a go at tasting the food and giving our opinions. So we bring in opinion vocabulary. We talk about j'aime et je n'aime pas. We don't go much further than that. We just do like and dislike. And then we taste those foods so that the children actually can say whether they like them or they don't like them. So again, they're verbally able to communicate their opinions on things. And eventually, after lots and lots of practice on the verbal opinions, they have the opportunity to write little mini books, which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, which are held together with a little split pin that have pictures and text married together to show what they like and what they dislike. And this unit of work is available on my blog, so you can go very easily in there and find it. And if you want any resources which aren't on the page, then I'm more than happy to send them out. So we see here that we've married together culture alongside all of those things that we want children to be doing, practicing their phonics, learning new vocabulary, using that vocabulary verbally in sentences. We've talked about masculine and feminine with le and la. So we've used the definite article, and then we've spoken and written sentences which express how we're feeling. So linguistically, there's loads and loads of progression happening during that unit, but there's also lots and lots of cultural elements in there too. I can't get my sound to work this morning, but if you do fancy looking at this, it's on my my Twitter page, my school Twitter page, and it's the children verbally expressing their opinions about particular foods in French. And they did that really, really beautifully with really nice pronunciation, really enthusiastically talking about their likes and dislikes, which children always do when they have to talk about their opinions on things. So year 4, going into year 4, we've got here a unit of work on Henri Matisse. This is a really nice unit of work that I adapted from Rachel Hawkes's fantastic and free online scheme. So if you're looking for a place to start, that might be a good one. And it's a unit of work which essentially brings in noun and adjective order, noun and adjective agreement for some children, and being able to connect two ideas together with a conjunction. So that's the linguistic progression that we're looking at within this unit of work. And children really are inspired to talk about Henri Matisse's work, his collage work in particular. And I'm pretty sure that we'll all be aware of this piece of work that he produced, which is called L'escargot, the snail. And the children learn the names of different shapes. They learn and revise, should I say, different colours, which they've already learnt in year 3. So they're using adjectives. And then they use the colour and the shape together to create sentences, nice and simple to start off with. And then they create their own piece of Henri Matisse inspired work. So they create their own animal using lots and lots of different shapes in different colours. And then they describe both verbally and in writing, the different shapes that they have used and the position of those shapes. So they're starting to use positional vocabulary to talk about where things are. So in terms of progression, we're revisiting colours, we're introducing shapes, we're revisiting adjective and noun order, and some children might even move on to adjective and noun agreement, very, very simple masculine, feminine agreement. And we're talking about prepositions and where things, we're talking about positional vocabulary, so where things are on the page. So again, the children have got a really nice progression within that unit of work linguistically, but also they're learning about a very important French artist and a very important element of French culture. So again, marrying those two things together. We're not learning about Henri Matisse in isolation, although they do go on to learn about him in art later on in the year, which is a really, really nice connection through. And that's another thing that I would suggest if you are thinking about how you're going to bring culture into your classroom, is have a look at what children are doing in their art, have a look at what they're doing in geography, have a look at what they're doing in English perhaps even, and have a think about how you can bring those things together. How could you marry those things together? Now, this idea of bringing in other subject areas is really important for me at my school, and it's something that I try to do to raise the profile of French and also to make it more relevant to the children, to help them to see that there is a connection already between French and other subjects, because when you have a specialist teacher teaching, it can become a very standalone subject. So I want to make it really clear that there are connections to other subject areas as well. And this Year 5 unit, On s'envole pour la francophonie, is one which I've planned in collaboration with Angela Smith, who's a fabulous languages practitioner at Stafford Lees Primary School, not very far away from where I teach. And it allows children not only to make links with geography, which is very, very important, but it also allows them to see that French is not just spoken in France. And that's something that we're going to talk a little bit about later on. French is a global language, and we need to explore the reasons for that and the influence of colonialism on the world today. And I want to bring that into my culture lessons as well. So On s'envole pour la francophonie is a unit of work which I'm going to be introducing this year. And the children are going to have an opportunity through a text, a very, very simple text, to find out information about different parts of the French-speaking world. Canada, Guadeloupe, Morocco, for example, to name just a few. And they learn that French is spoken in those countries, although by Year 5 they will already know about the global nature of French, and you'll see why in a little moment. And then they're going to have an opportunity to really start thinking about travelling to those places. And the final piece of written work is one in which they talk about which country they're going to go to, what month they're going to go there, or what time of the year, what season, and what they're going to pack into their suitcase. So they're revising clothes, they're revising weather, they're revising months of the year, and putting all of that together into a piece of text that explains why they're putting certain items into their suitcase. And again, this unit of work, once it's fully planned, is going to be up on my blog. So you're more than welcome to use that and request any resources via email or via message. So again, this is an opportunity for children to revisit learning, build on that learning, but also understand more about the French-speaking world through that particular unit of work. And I think that brings much more richness to the subject of weather, or the subject of clothes, or the subject of months of the year, than just teaching them in isolation, which I do. I also do teach them in isolation, but you can bring the two together as well in really interesting and rich ways for the children. This link with the wider French-speaking world is one that I really try to exploit as well in this unit of work, which is Je découvre le Sénégal. So Year 6 have got a link school in Senegal, which again I'm going to talk to you about in a moment, and they complete a unit of work in which again they're talking about clothing, but it's all within the frame, if you like, of Dakar Fashion Week. So we talk a lot about the importance of Dakar Fashion Week, the fact that it brings together designers from all over Africa using fabrics that are created and made in Africa, and showcasing the very best of African innovation when it comes to fashion. And then the children use these images as inspiration for a piece of writing eventually in which they are describing the various different outfits worn by people on the catwalk at Dakar Fashion Week. So you'll notice that in the top left-hand corner, the children are using specifically Senegalese or West African vocabulary of un boubou, which is a very floating garment that's worn for special occasions. And also there's talk about things like un mousseur, which is a headscarf. So again, that's bringing in a little bit more cultural richness than if we were just teaching un pantalon, une robe. So we are teaching that vocabulary, we're bringing in others as well. And here the children have spent lots of time prior to their writing, doing lots of speaking and listening and practice of adjective noun agreement in the singular and in the plural, and the position of adjectives, not just adjectives of colour, but adjectives of size, which have to go before the noun. So again, lots and lots of linguistic richness there, lots of grammatical richness, but also cultural richness as well. And we continue on the theme of Le Sénégal later on in the year, in year 6, when we start talking about music. J'aime la musique. And here children are thinking about another aspect of Senegalese culture, which is the music. Music is really, really important in Senegalese culture. It centers around storytellers and musicians called griots who tell stories and keep culture verbally. It's an oral tradition of cultural passing on, if you like. And the children listen to different musical instruments, and they give their opinions on those musical instruments. They talk about whether they like the music of those instruments or not. And here we've got the partitive article, because we've got things like j'aime la musique du djembé, par exemple. And they also start to think about justifying those opinions and talking about why, using dictionaries to find adjectives to explain what that music is like and why they do or don't like that particular music. So again, we've got lots of new vocabulary with the names of the instruments, the African instruments, but we've also got talking about our opinions. And we've also got the partitive article in there as well. So again, there's lots of grammar in there, there's lots of vocabulary in there. Of course, we're always bringing in our phonics and finding those graphemes that we recognize from all of our phonics work that's built up to this point. But it's, again, all through the lens of Senegalese music, and it's all through that cultural lens again. Now, those are the things that we're already doing, but of course there are things that need to be added in, and our curriculum, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, is always changing, it's always being adapted, it's always moving forward. So this coming academic year, I'm introducing something different to our unit in year 5 on On fait des courses. So up till now, children have been learning a little bit about how to practically use French to get what they want. And I think it's very important to have units like that within your planning as well, where the children have opportunities to really engage with language that they can use in a real life context to get something that they want. Very, very similar to when we're in the French cafe. On fait des courses is an opportunity for them to do that, to learn some vocabulary about je voudrais, I would like, whatever it is. I would like some. So we're again thinking about that idea of some or a, so singular and plural. And this time we are going to be adding in an opportunity for the children to go on a virtual French trip, which is where they are going to be visiting a French market, which we're going to set up in the playground, weather permitting. And our lovely premises manager is going to be making some stalls for us, which are going to be staffed by year 6 children, our gifted and talented year 6 children. And the children will go to the market via a plane, which is going to be set up somewhere. It's a very grand scheme. Not all the practicalities have been hammered out, but they will get on their plane, they will go to the French market, work as a team to collect specific items from a shopping list, send a postcard home, put it in the post box, and then they'll get back on the plane and take everything they've brought back to their classrooms for a picnic in the afternoon. So again, it's a practical opportunity for children to learn language, but also a cultural opportunity for them to understand the importance of the market. And we'll talk about the market in France and how provenance of food is very important in France and how people like to buy food that's as fresh as possible, for example. So again, culture and language combined. When I first started teaching as my school specialist teacher 4 or 5 years ago, I also knew right from the beginning that it wasn't just about adapting the curriculum, that we needed to actually forge some real connections with French speakers around the world. And again, I say French speakers because we really don't want to just be thinking about French as a language spoken in France or a language spoken in Europe, but one that's spoken all over the world. And so I began the process of connecting with teachers and students from a range of different Francophone countries. And we've been really successful in this. It's been a very long process of trial and error, but we now finally have every year group in Key Stage 2 with a partner school in another part of the French-speaking world. So Year 3 have a partner school in Guadeloupe, which is really interesting because although it's in the Caribbean, it's part of France officially. So we have lots of interesting discussions around that. Year 4 have got a partner school on Réunion Island, again, officially part of France, but nowhere near France. Why is that? We have lots of discussions about that. And also with Chad, which is a really, really interesting link that we have with a fabulous school that's literally being built as we are partnering with them. And Year 5 link with a school in Rwanda, and Year 6, as I've already said, with a school in Senegal. So we talk about the fact that these countries are French-speaking countries, or they're countries where French is the official language. It may not be that all of the children speak French in those schools in the case of Rwanda. So it's very, very interesting to have those discussions around the languages that the children there speak. And my head teacher is very on board with this, and I've been very lucky. Anyone who was at the ALL primary teachers conference on last Saturday will have heard my head teacher speaking about what we do in terms of the international dimension of the school. And we do actually have specific international time where the children work once every half term, more or less, with me during a particular moment that's not a French lesson, to actually do things like letter writing and Zoom calls, as you can see here, and postcard writing and map work and all of those things that help them to connect with and understand more about life in their partner country. But what I think it does is it really brings that language learning to life, and it allows children to see that there is a real purpose for learning languages. Now, prior, of course, to Brexit, we had the fabulous e-twinning platform, and this was a really great way to connect with teachers around Europe and create opportunities for working together, for collaboration, and also for movement of pupils and teachers as well. So it was possible for teachers to go to other countries and to observe the teachers in their partner schools, and it was possible for the children to go as well, all funded by the Erasmus programme. Now, of course, we sadly don't have that available to us anymore, which is an enormous shame. And I'm sure that all of us will feel that that is a great loss to us as a language teaching community and language learning community. But we do have the Turing scheme, which has taken its place and offers apparently international opportunities in education and travel across the globe. So the Turing scheme was run a few years ago as a sort of pilot scheme, but it is now in place. And I know of several schools who've gone to France and to Spain with their children with funding from the Turing scheme. So if you already have partners, should I say, and you are looking for ways to strengthen those partnerships and to make sure that the children understand the reason for those partnerships, and you want to go and visit them, then you might want to apply through the Turing scheme for funding. And the deadline for that is the 28th of April, 2023. So we've got a little bit of time left on that. But the biggest question that I always get asked is, how do you make your connections with schools abroad? And the two main ways that we have done that as a school is through firstly connecting classrooms, which is a really fantastic initiative run by the British Council, which allows you to work on projects with particular countries and with particular schools. All of those schools are vetted by the British Council for their eligibility to work on these projects, and many of them focus on the Sustainable Development Goals. And we've been working with our partner school in Rwanda on a project based around the Zero Hunger project, the Zero Hunger Sustainable Development Goal. So again, it's giving opportunities to work in more dynamic ways, if you like, with partners abroad, working on specific projects. But if you don't want to do that, you could always use the British Council's Partner Finder tool, which is, again, another really great way to just quite simply type in the country that you want to connect with once you've registered, and to connect with people who also want to work collaboratively with partners abroad. This one's a little bit more touch and go. We got our wonderful partner in Chad this way, but it is a little bit more touch and go because you could contact somebody and they might not get back in touch with you, or you might be contacted by somebody who you don't want to be contacted by. I suppose it's a bit like online dating in a way. So you kind of have to filter people out if you like, but we have found really great partners this way. Our partner in Chad, as I've said, mentioned before. So it can be a really nice way to find people, and you can specify the country that you want to work with. And as just a quick side note, for anybody who does want to think about their international partnerships, there is a really fabulous initiative, again, by the British Council, which is the International School Award, which you can apply for if you have initiated, even in the beginning, links with a partner school. That's for the very lowest level. But as you create and develop those partnerships, you'll be able to apply for higher levels of accreditation. And our school was awarded the British Council's International School Award full accreditation last year, based on the work that we do in French, but also the work that we do with our partners in other countries to embed that knowledge and that learning. So as well as having partners in other parts of the world, I really wanted to make sure that we had that sort of cross-curricular element within our French lessons and our French learning. And that's what I was talking about earlier, saying that French can sometimes, or languages can sometimes, especially if done by a specialist teacher, can sometimes feel a little bit isolated and on its own and set aside from the rest of the curriculum. So over time, I've also tried to develop this kind of cross-curricular aspect of French learning. So I've always felt that French and art would be a really great combination. And we know that so many people come to France, or have come to France historically, great artists, to paint there and be inspired there and to produce work there. So I put to my head teacher a couple of years ago that we should try and combine, and I would work together with the art lead to plan a Francophone Art Week, which we've done. We've done it for 2 years running now. We've just had our exhibition for this year's this week. And what the children do is they all have a focus artist. Key Stage 1 focus and reception focus on artists like Henri Rousseau. They focus on Claude Monet, for example, and they learn about that artist's work, and they learn about their inspiration, and they look at their works of art, and importantly, the techniques that they use, and they apply those to create their own pieces of artwork. Key Stage 2 do exactly the same thing, but this time the artist comes from their partner country. So Year 3 have got an artist who they actually have spoken to via Zoom, which was very exciting. In Guadeloupe, Year 4, an artist from Reunion Island, or 2 artists from Reunion Island. Year 5, an artist from Rwanda, and Year 6, an artist from Senegal. So they study the techniques of that artist, and they use that artist's work as their inspiration for their own work on canvas, work on card, work on paper. And they also, in their French lessons, produce writing based either on the artist or on the country. So you can see here, Year 5 have created some list poems about Rwanda, because they're working at the moment on masculine and feminine definite articles and the plural, so they've done that. And Year 6 have created some really lovely pieces of writing, autobiographies about the artist Souleymane Keita, who is their focused artist from Senegal. So again, marrying culture and language together, and also bringing in that cross-curricular element to make that language learning really meaningful. We do the same thing for La Semaine de la Francophonie later on in the year. La Semaine de la Francophonie isn't really a celebration of the Francophone world, in the sense that La Semaine de la Francophonie tends to be a celebration of the fact that of the existence of La Francophonie, which I think is a little bit controversial. But we do actually mark this this event by doing lots and lots, again, of cross-curricular learning. Like Francophone Art Week, which happens earlier on in the year, it's an afternoon, it's a set of afternoons. So during the week, the children do English and maths in the morning as usual, and then they do their do their Francophone learning in the afternoon, every afternoon. And again, they are looking at a particular aspect of the culture of their partner country. So year 5, for example, we're learning about the Bronze Age settlements in Rwanda and how there's lots of pottery evidence, and they created their own dimple pots based on that. Year 2, you can see here, we're looking at the effects of deforestation in Madagascar. So again, thinking about the culture and the geography of that particular island and what's happening there, helping the children to understand more. And it's a great opportunity for map work, and it's a great opportunity for music, and it's a great opportunity for geography, and it's a great opportunity for design technology. And you just need to find ways to weave that in. So again, it's making their French learning really, really relevant, opening their eyes to the Francophone world, and bringing in that cross-curricular element as well. So if that's something that you're really interested in doing, then I found this series of books really helpful, because it gives you a great background in really child-friendly language about the country, about the culture, and you can pick out different elements, different issues, different things that you want to focus on with the children. And also they just make a great resource for the classroom to be there for the children to read. So that's an example of one of the resources that I've used to try and create this cross-curricular approach that we have. So what I've expressed to you today is what we've built at Hazel Primary School over 4 or 5 years, really. Obviously, we've had COVID and lockdowns in between, but this has been built up really over time. And the main thing that I would say is that this all started off really, really small. This all started off with a celebration of Bastille Day, of Le 14 Juillet. But at the end of the day, big things often have very, very small beginnings, and starting off small and growing things over time is the best way to do this. It really helps us to embed that learning, to get everybody on board, to get teachers on board. And I hope that some of the things that you've seen today might have sparked a little thought in your mind that you can take away with you and use within your own setting. And again, I'm sure that so many of the things that I've mentioned are things that you are already doing in your settings. So from a school which 5 years ago had little to no French teaching happening at all, pupils now, I hope, are exposed to a very linguistically and culturally rich curriculum, which, fingers crossed, will inspire their love of language learning, a love of language learning that we hope will last a lifetime. So that's me. We are now a few minutes out from the end. So I'm going to just quickly check the Q&A. Oh, we've got nobody in the Q&A. So let's just check the chat quickly and see if people have put their questions in the chat. So I introduced a unit on La Francophonie for my year 5s last year, and included a chance to find some named countries on Google Maps, yeah, and colour and label. They enjoyed it very much. Yes, good. They do love looking at maps and looking at things and finding things out. I'll be looking to incorporate some in my units this year, so thank you. That's a pleasure. How did I make my partners make the partnerships with schools in Réunion and Guadeloupe? That was through eTwinning, which isn't available anymore, but you can find schools in those places through the British Council's Partner Finder tool as well. So go and see if you can find anything there as well. Do you still do the small things as well as the big, or do you fizzle these out? Yes, we still do the small things. We still do the celebrations of Bastille Day. We still do the celebrations of La Fête des Rois. We still do April Fools. Yeah, we do all of those things as well within our units of work, but they're more standalone things, and then we incorporate the other things as well. And Joe says, brilliant presentation. Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Lovely. Brilliant. So I want to see if there are any more questions. I will just quickly check the Q&A again. No, we've got no questions there. So I think, therefore, if we haven't got any further questions, then we are finished for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for sharing your time with me this morning, and for being fantastic supporters and brilliant languages practitioners. And I hope to see you again soon at some other point, or maybe in my other talk, which is about decolonising the curriculum, which is at 12 o'clock today. So thank you all so much, and I will see you all soon. Take care. Thanks, James. Bye. Thank you, Claire. Thanks, Anna. Bye. See you soon. Thank you.